they're dumping it down the drain, and they have no idea what they should be buying. But because their panic buy hit the stores, the next group in said, there's not enough of this. I need to get more of it. The other thing that if you were in the New York City area or any of the cities, you would have noticed is the fresh produce stayed behind. Everybody was afraid that the virus might be spread by the fresh produce. So they didn't want that. So everything that Americans have talked about for the last 10 years, which is fresh produce, organic produce, don't get it canned, don't get it processed, all of those things were completely reversed overnight. So if you were Campbell's Soup and you were only making a certain amount of soup, suddenly your entire inventories were wiped out. And if you were any of the pasta companies, overnight, these things were wiped out. And it takes a little bit of time to replenish them. We have an unbelievable food system in this country. It's better than anything that the world has ever experienced. 50 years ago, the average supermarket held about 3,000 different items. The average supermarket today has over 36,000 different products in it. It's phenomenal. When I was growing up, you could get oranges in January, February, and March, and they came from Florida. You can get oranges any time of year that you want at a price that's ridiculously low, coming from any place in the world. And that's the question? Nope. And so our idea of food security is not just whether you can get food or not. It's whether you can get exactly the kind of food that you want. And so we have a very, very difficult time when we walk into a supermarket and things are even half empty. And so I've got 5 of the people that work for me are spread around the country. And one of the things that is part of their duties is to go out to the grocery stores every other day and just check. And if you were in Denver, Colorado, and you wanted to go to a grocery store like Whole Foods, which opens at 7 o'clock in the morning, you would have to have gotten in line somewhere around 5:30. And everybody is 6 feet away from each other, and they wrap around the building twice. They let 50 people in at a time. When those 50 people are done, they let in the next 50 people. And this, when Kroger, who has one of their largest stores, and one that you might not be familiar with, but it would be like a Walmart superstore, only groceries though, the store was entirely wiped out. And in one day, they sold $850,000 worth of product. 4 times the best day they ever had. So the store was entirely wiped out. Now you've got to shut the store down and you've got to restock the shelves. And you can restock the shelves a couple of times out of your normal inventory. But companies like Walmart, like Kroger, like Stop and Shop, like Wegmans, they don't like to have a lot of inventory. Everything needs to be in a just-in-time mode. So they would have 1 week's worth of inventory in their warehouse. So people were eating or buying a week's worth of food in a day. Now these companies needed to ship that food out of their warehouses as fast as they could to get it to restock the shelves. They couldn't restock the shelves fast enough, so enter into it the news media. The news media comes in and starts sensationalizing all of these empty shelves. The more empty shelves you see on TV, the more you think when you're in the supermarket, you better be buying everything that you can find. And now you're buckling down for a Holocaust, right? And you need to get things that are going to last for 5 years. So what can I get? Well, I think I can get enough toilet paper to last for 5 years. Then people say, well, there's not going to be enough toilet paper. One of the most ridiculous things that has occurred in this thing, as we look back on it, will be this craze that you needed toilet paper. But so much toilet paper was bought that Kimberly-Clark in Pennsylvania, the largest toilet paper manufacturing one site anywhere, was deemed an essential product to have during this. And they reopened the plant in order to make toilet paper, to make people feel better. Okay, I think I have a chat. Somebody's asking yeah.
Priming the pump. I was just saying that I finally bought toilet paper. It was crazy.
And
I
I
was
think,
very happy.
Yeah. We were reusing it for quite a while.
yeah. I know that somebody told me that they used to roll the toilet paper like you were rolling a roulette wheel. And now they do it preciously and nobody gets more than 2 sheets. But I believe that you'll see that there's a lot more toilet paper coming. Well, let me tell you what's not coming. Meat.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the news is starting to warn people, you're not going to be able to get as much meat. But if people would just buy what they need for that short period of time, say it's a week's worth because you only want to go to the grocery store once a week, we won't have a meat, chicken, or pork problem. But we're going to have a big problem because people are going to go through and they're going to say, I would have gotten 1 pork roast, but I might as well get 4 because they're here. Yes, Laurel.
Well, that was actually going to be my question, is just, yeah, how quickly does that catch up with the rest of the country? Those huge plants closed down. What's the time frame for that?
Okay, so the time frame is about 4 weeks, because the processing of a hog, or the slaughterhouse of a hog, then goes into refrigeration for a period of time. Then it goes out to an actual packing house. Then it goes into the redistribution network of whether it's going to Walmart or any of the other big ones. So there's about a 4-week lag in that. There's also 33 different beef slaughterhouses in the country. So it's not like you count on just one. The problem is, as I understand it, between meat, poultry, and pork right now, 17 of them are down out of what would probably be like 100. And the Smithfield one that I was talking about with the hogs is the largest one in the country. And the one in Pennsylvania was the largest one on the East Coast. But our food system is so resilient that food can come from any place in this country. And what you may start to see in your local, yeah, I see you, Noah. Just let me finish my sentence.
That was all him.
The resilience of our food system is such that there's so much redundancy built into it that, in fact, you would not see that there was a problem unless people started to overconsume. The other thing is, with food service being down, know that restaurants and these other takeouts and stuff like that, they consume a tremendous amount of the meat and poultry in the country. So you're actually seeing some of the chickens be killed and just buried because there's no use for them. When people buy at grocery stores, they don't overstock on these things. So there's actually plenty of supply for that. And you might not eat as much chicken, beef, and pork as you would have in the past if you were eating out. But there would be plenty if people didn't start, going like crazy to buy it. We will go crazy because that's human nature. Human nature is going to be, you're going to go to the grocery store and you're going to see it all gone. And you're going to wonder, okay, now what do I do? If I can't eat that, what can I eat? And the next thing you know, you'll be buying liver. In fact, I made a joke with somebody at work. I said, all the meat was gone, but fortunately the liverwurst was left behind because that's what I was looking for.
Woo!
Exactly, Noah. So you know, you're going to have to make some choices. But the thing is, you're going to see a tremendous amount of fresh produce when you go into a supermarket. I'm amazed at how they look. And I'm out in them about every third day or so. I kind of take a look in different ones. And you can get in Vermont virtually everything you want. My sister, who's down in northern New Jersey, says it's a little bit more difficult, but they're amazed at how fast things get refilled. They're amazed at the supply line that has emerged. And now, as we're into what we call week 7 of this thing, we now see a pattern for how people act and interact with each other. And you can actually see the behavior starting to change, and people are starting to relax a little bit. That relaxation could be a problem for people like us. We're trying to make sure that none of our plants become infected. And one of the things about our plants that's a problem is that we're processing milk. And milk's got 48 hours from the time it comes out of the cow until you do something with it. And if you don't have processing capability to do anything with it, then it gets dumped. And that's what you're seeing on TV is it's getting dumped. So the milk that's getting dumped that you see on TV is related mainly to products that would go into food service, which are heavily fat laden, which is sour cream, for instance. We were making 2 million pounds a month of sour cream just for food service. It was either in a 5-pound container or a 17.5-pound container, going to restaurants, going to universities. With that gone, that's 2 million pounds of product that we're not making, nobody wants. And when you go to a grocery store, the tendency for most people is, I don't think I actually need sour cream, do I? What would I use it for? And restaurants use it all the time in almost everything that they're cooking. It's why if you eat at a restaurant all the time, you're going to get fat, and your cholesterol level is going to go up. The other big product is 1 pound solid butter, which is something that in a grocery store you wouldn't typically see. But that's how food service likes it. And restaurants don't want it to be salted. And I don't know how many of you buy unsalted butter. Right? So here's I can teach you a little bit about butter. You might as well learn something that's not pandemic oriented. So salted butter is 7 times more popular than unsalted butter. So if you're in the grocery store, that's what people are buying. Unsalted butter is always fresh because you can't freeze unsalted butter. But salted butter, we put in the freezer January, February, and March, and it comes out during October, November, and December when people are doing all the baking. So unsalted butter is always going to be fresher, so to speak. And the reason why unsalted butter is the favorite of restaurant people and other universities and stuff is because they want to add the precise amount of salt to things. And they don't want to have a product that's already got salt in it to begin with. So the other thing that you should know, and this is a slight detriment to Cabot, but the inside scoop, do you understand the differences in butter between a private label butter, which would be like Stop and Shop or Wegmans butter, or Cabot butter, or an Land O'Lakes butter? If you look at the side label of the butter, and it has 2 A's on the side of it, that's the USDA grading of the butter. All of that butter is identical. It passes exactly the same spec. So there's absolutely no difference between a Wegmans butter or a Cabot butter if they both have the 2 A's on the side. If they don't, then you probably don't want to buy that butter unless it's got the 2 A's on the side, because that's a grading by the USDA. And anything else is an inferior product. So, but you still have to buy Cabot now that you know that.
Noah, okay, you are raising a finger there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Noah.
As for anyone who doesn't know, I worked in a supermarket for a year, so I kind of see when times get tough or anything, what product goes down. I do realize that as, you know, if there's a snowstorm in Vermont, the wine, industry kind of empties. Anyway, why I was just wondering why milk and more dairy products are a lot of people like them. Like, why is it always being refilled opposed to like pasta and grains?
Talking to a farmer, I'll give you the line that they gave me when I left the meeting at 5 o'clock on a Friday night and said, well, have a nice weekend. And they said, easy for you to say. I got to milk the cows tomorrow. The milk comes every day, 365 days a year, 2 to 3 milkings a day. So as a result, you know that dairy products are going to constantly be refilled and they're going to be fresh. So that's the one constant in this that we know of for the pandemic and going forward is that the dairy industry is going to be able to continue to supply food. And it could be cheese, it could be yogurt. And if you saw on the news, Cabot made the national news a few nights ago because Cuomo announced that he was going to be sending food into New York City. And specifically, he was going to be sending Cabot cheese and Chobani yogurt as 2 of the things that they were going to be doing as part of the giveaways to the people in New York City who were banging on the doors of the food banks and other places. So that was something that we wanted. I think I see John. Yes.
Sorry. So my question was kind of about how there's less meat available. Wait, are we muted?
No, I can hear you.
Sorry. No, the little yellow box didn't move. Oh, there it is. I must not be speaking loud enough for it to register. Anyways, so my question is kind of more about the meat or the lack thereof. And I was wondering sort of like your opinion about like when we come out onto the other side of this, do you think more people will be on a more plant-based diet since, they kind of have to be, or they're probably having to switch over to a more plant-based diet nowadays?
Interesting question, because I think the plant-based diets right now are going to take a big hit. Because it's going to be less available, because there's less people out there harvesting the fresh produce. I do think that Americans' habits are going to change. I'm not sure whether people are going to go to grocery stores in the future. They've gotten into click and collect, or we did takeout last Friday night. Was the first night we called. I think they got tired of my cooking. They said, could we have takeout one night? So we did takeout, Noah, from Grazers. And you go online, you put in what you want, you pay for it, you pay the tip, you tell them when you're going to arrive, and they have the arrival times every 3 minutes. You tell them what your car looks like, they come out to the car, you roll down the window, and they drop the bag in the car. And then they say thank you and they walk away. And we're going to see more and more of that, along with a lot of home delivery of goods. We see that all day long. You're seeing Amazon trucks all over the place. Stores here are closed down, and I suspect that a lot of the stores by you are closed down also. And so everybody has gone to online shopping. So as I'm looking at some of the things that have come in, like no chicken today at Tops. So that means the next time you're in Tops and there's chicken there, you're not stopping at 1 or 2. You're gonna say, I've hit the jackpot. I'm taking 5, and you want to make sure that it's there. So let's see. Do you see any price fluctuations? So price fluctuations are quite interesting because dairy prices have collapsed, and you probably have heard a lot about the dairy farmers and the plight of it, and it seems backwards. But because grocery stores are really busy, doesn't mean that there's not too much milk in the system. And with all that excess milk and everybody processing as much as they can, milk prices to the farmers have gone down by about 30% at this point. And they were just at a point where they were breaking even. So we're going to see a lot of dairy farmers go out of business. At the same time, blocks of cheese that trade in 42-pound blocks on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, which is where a no-name block of cheese can be bought in railroad car sizes, that was trading for $1.80 in the beginning of March. It hit a low last week of $1. So cheese was going for $1 a pound, which means that as you go to the grocery store, you won't see it yet, but remember, dairy is plentiful and can be replenished very easily. And you're going to start to see dairy prices actually come down during this. Meat will go the other way because there's going to be less meat available and there'll be less meat coming in the pipeline. And you'll see meat prices start to climb by probably $1 or $2 a pound for a variety of things. The other thing that you may notice, and you may have noticed it already, I don't know if anybody has tried to buy hamburger and it's now gone. But early on, hamburger was just wiped out. And so grocery stores, instead of counting on the meat packers to grind the hamburger, grocery stores have started to grind their own. So how many of you have noticed that your hamburger is now fresh and it's not coming in these super sealed packages that was there before? Have you seen that at your stores yet? Whoa. Okay, so that's with trouble in so much trouble in the dairy industry before COVID, and with so many stories about dairy farmers committing suicide, do you fear longer term issues from this with dairy supply? The dairy farmers are unbelievably resilient to get through these things. But we are going to see a lot of the smaller dairy farms go out of business. So we have 840 farms within our co-op today, and I expect that more than 100 of them will close over the course of this year. That the financial impact of this will be so devastating that they can't recover, and they'll try to sell out, and they might not be able to. And if the meat packing plants are closed, they'll have a difficult time just getting rid of their cows. So that's why you see a lot of work from the U.S. government to try to step in and support some of the dairy industry and the dairy farmers. When we look at the dairy business over the course of the last 5 years, it's really been the worst 5 years in the history of the dairy industry. The prices have been way below what what it costs to make milk. If you were to recover your full cost, it's enough so that you can feed them, and there's a little bit of money to pay for electricity and barns, but a lot of the dairy farms, the smaller ones, have fallen into disrepair over that period of time. They're not able to reinvest and buy new equipment, better equipment, so that they can stay up on the times. And part of it is just that some of the dairy farmers are older and they have nobody to turn the farm over to. So that generation is now done, and they will sell out. Within Cabot, there is an equity account, and once they decide to go out of business, they get all of their equity money paid back to them over the course of 5 years. And it's kind of like a retirement program for them. And if they turn 70 and they still want to farm, which a number of our farmers want to do, then they can start to collect that equity at that point. And they get one chance to do it. So we have farmers that are 85 years old and they're still farming, and they don't understand why they can only work 7 to 10 hours a day, and they just don't have it like they used to. So it's a really interesting breed of people. They also don't like sitting around a lot. So earlier today, I said I was on with them for about 8 hours, and around 3:30 this afternoon, one of them was in his lazy boy, and it just got a little too lazy for him. And the next thing you know, he looked like he was sleeping. So the person that was kind of running all the Zooms immediately made sure that he was muted, just in case he started snoring. And then at the very end, he had 2 or 3 grandkids that came running and jumped on him and woke him up, right? So you never know what's going to happen in a Zoom and who's watching the various pieces of it, right?
I can only imagine. Yeah, I've worked with a lot of dairy farmers being here in Western New York, and they are a strong breed and do not want to give up no matter what. So it'll be
No matter
interesting.
what.
I'm very grateful that you have that that program within Cabot that equity can continue to go to them, and
Yeah.
that's a great safety net in these times.
Yeah, so we just approved today the payout for this year, $4.8 million going out to retired farmers.
Wow.
So it's a good chunk of money. They count on it, and we make sure from a financial standpoint that we are positioned to be able to do that.
Wow.
You want to answer the question?
Janine has a question here. It's a great question. If they are killing and burying chickens, why aren't they processing them and freezing them for the future and doing likewise with other meats?
Right. So and that gets to the food security piece of this that is also important to know. This country actually maintains a safety net of food of more than 5 months. So there is quite a bit of meat and poultry that's in the freezers already. And if you go across the country, there's not enough more freezer space to be able to do exactly what you're looking to do. I wouldn't call it an infrastructure problem, because nobody would have thought, whoa, you need more than 5 months worth of food. What they're now going to try to figure out is at what pace to bring this food out in. So if we can't get over this virus and we can't get back to a more normal trend of people being able to harvest and people being able to go to restaurants for food and things like that, then they're going to be a lot slower about how they bring things out of the freezer. It'll also be very interesting to see what grains are planted and harvested this year. My understanding is that across the country, the weather has been really good and they got an early planting. Yes, Laurel.
So kind of related is, my sister just had a question about how will there be a point where stores limit the amount of meat that people are able to buy, just as they have limited toilet paper or milk or those kinds of things?
Absolutely. And in my mind, they should start now. They should start to get ahead of the flow, because you don't want to have the toilet paper situation. So 2 packages of chicken should be enough for somebody to come in and buy. They don't have to buy, half a dozen or more of them. Yes, Rock. 2. You're 2. So
Checking on Laurel's question.
you just muted yourself.
Okay, there we go. I
Okay.
think did Noah and John have a question? They were first in line, I think.
They were? Did you have a question, Noah?
I always have a question. So you mentioned that the opposed to dairy, poultry and meats will go down as the pandemic continues. I was just wondering, for those large amount of small farms that will go out of business, will they give their cows to be slaughtered?
For the most part, that's what they would do. What you may or may not realize is half of the meat that you buy in the grocery store is a former dairy cow. And if you're not buying a dairy cow, then you're buying a beef cow. And a beef cow is an Angus. And so when you look at it and you go, oh, I'm going to have Angus beef tonight, that's a cow that was grown just to be eaten. But most or half of the meat is actually dairy cows. And so those cows are generally anywhere from 6 to 7 years old. And an Angus cow is generally about 2.5 to 3 years old. That's when they hit full weight and size. Good question, Noah. Not that I'm surprised.
I don't know if to take that as a compliment or an insult.
Take that as a compliment. Take that as a compliment.
And I did get a couple feedback that people around the country, Colorado and in Virginia. No, wait, Vic, you're in another 4 hours away from us in New York, but they're already limiting packages of meat. Sounds like for people.
They are not in Vermont.
Huh.
And some of the Vermont-based product is actually raised and slaughtered right here in state. So they haven't felt the need yet to do that. And again, if you go into a grocery store and the food's all there, you don't think anything of it. So like the other day, I needed flour, and I came through and King Arthur had a 10-pound thing of flour, and I'm like, I don't really want to buy a 10-pound one of flour. I'll wait for a 5-pound to come back in. And I thought afterward, I probably should have gotten that while I could, right? Because the next time in, they didn't have that. Now they have gold medal flour, and I don't like gold medal flour. I'm trying to buy what I normally buy, right? As a typical American, but gold medal flour was what came in that day. So that's what they put on the shelf.
You should try out the gluten-free flour.
And I was
curious,
how, when does leadership start to step in and maybe counteract? I mean, you look at the perfect storm of human nature, then, news pouring gasoline on the bonfire. Why, in like government addresses or the White House, aren't we being encouraged to be mindful of the way we shop? I mean, I don't hear anything kind of the other direction to counterbalance us and, shop thinking just like we don't want to overload the hospitals.
right?
Why don't we get some direction about not overtaxing, especially specific food areas in the supermarket?
Yeah, it would be great. But as soon as you tell humans that, that's the first thing that they go for, right? There's going to be a shortage. You're starting to hear it already. The CEO of Tyson came out and said, there's going to be a shortage. Well, that didn't make anybody feel better, right? And you see that the poultry industry, they've been actually destroying eggs because they're not growing as many chickens right now as they did before. So it'll be a very interesting next 2 to 3 months as we kind of come through this. And we're a long way from being done with this. I think people are starting to realize that until you have an immunization for it, or you have something that you can take if you get this virus, then you're always going to be a little bit concerned about it. So one of the things that I've been doing every week is kind of a quick update on what's happening at work and where do I see things going. So thinking along that line, it really comes into states are coming up with rules about people going back to work. Well, we've been at work for the last month, and some of the rules that they want us to do are things that are so far in our past that we would have to basically stop the operation to do it. One of them is educate your employees on what a pandemic is and have them sign off that you talk to them. So in order to do that, we would have to stop our lines and go, okay, we're going to educate you on what a pandemic is and why it's important to be 6 feet apart. The other thing is that they go, well, you can only have 5 production workers back at a time now. Well, our buildings are holding 120 people in them. And they're like, yeah, that's right. And then you get to the next thing and said, and in some of the places on our line, people are within 6 feet of each other. So we're violating all of these new rules and regulations that are coming out. So we had to go back and get special permission to say, your manufacturing facilities, we know what you've been doing. You've been telling us all along. You've been kind of guiding us. We're using your guidance to kind of build this for these other people. And we totally understand why you're close. And we get it. And in fact, they've come out and toured the facilities to get an idea of how you can get people in through one door, out through another door, not punching the clock at the same time, making sure that there's 6 feet of distance between them, making sure that at a lunch table, people are at individual tables and not sitting with each other. So, you know, they're like, we're prototyping a lot of what we're doing based on what we've seen and the success that you've had with this. So they said, we're not out to stop you. You're an essential organization, and essential organizations have special exemptions on them. Now, with that said, we've been using masks now for 2 weeks, and it's a complete failure. Because if somebody has a mask on for 8 hours in the kind of humidity environment of a cheese plant, it just becomes super soaked and it starts sagging down on your face. They also have to wear goggles, and the goggles fog up from it. So,
and didn't you say, Ed, that like you didn't get them until 2 weeks ago, right?
right.
So
right.
up to that point, you kind of did better without the masks then, huh?
We were okay without the masks as long as we did all of our distancing and those pieces. But we really, you know, a lot of people were adamant that we needed to have the mask. So we had long ago looked to get them, but they haven't worked out the way that we thought that they were going to. So we have actually ordered shields for everybody. So you see the ones that they use in the medical area that you can flip up and they go down. Because now we're getting ready for the fall. We kind of have this one in the swing of what we're doing. We see that it's dissipating in most of the areas in Vermont. Our curve is very low. We think we're at the peak in West Springfield and maybe even starting to come down. So the people in West Springfield, even though it's considered to be a hot spot, are pretty good about what they're doing. And now we need to say, okay, when this thing, we're just saying it's going to come back. When it comes back, are we going to be ready? And are we going to be more ready when it comes back in the fall than we were now? And how do we do that? And what's the safety precautions that we have to do? So the other piece of equipment that we're ordering, the first one just to prototype it, and then we'll get more if that's the one that really works. But it's a $35,000 piece of equipment that measures the total body temperature of a person. So when they come in, you basically very quickly hook it up, they record their body temperature, and they'll record it to their name, and you'll measure their body temperature every day from then on out to find out. Because some people run a little bit cold and some people might run a little bit hot. And so it's all part of what is the work environment going to look like in the future, to understand, this kind of an illness. The other thing that the meat packers now see is people who have been sick, been quarantined, are coming back to work. So it's not like they're going to shut their doors forever. And this isn't a death sentence for, the population. But I mean, it could be 5% of the people that get it, or 5% of the people that we have tested get it. There's a lot of people that get this disease and don't ever even know that they have it, and they're spreading it. But it also means that there'll be a tremendous number of people who have had it, who will be able to work within the food system. And the food system is going to become the critical system in the country. A lot of other things can operate on their own, but the food system takes a lot of people, at least from the harvesting on. So the harvesting goes pretty smoothly, big machinery, they do that in a very automated fashion. But once you get to the meat packing, the milk processing, and those kind of things, along with fresh fruits and vegetables, very heavily people intensive. And not to get very political, because I tried to stay out of the middle of that, but it will be very ironic at the end of this to understand that the most important people in this country turned out to be all the immigrants that we've been trying to get rid of. Because every one of these facilities, these meatpacking facilities, these poultry facilities, have a tremendous number of immigrants, along with all of the harvesting of our fruits and vegetables. They're all done by either immigrants or by temporary immigration passes and things like that. And people will start to realize this country cannot operate without those people. And they have been, people have really, they've looked down on them. They've tried to get them out of the country, but they are doing all the jobs that Americans don't want to do. I haven't seen any Americans going, hey, I want to go into one of those meatpacking plants now because I want to try to save America. They're not doing that. Well, maybe Rock is, because he told me the other day he's super Rock. So it's tough from that standpoint. And and we inside of Cabot, we don't have a lot of immigrants, mainly because of where we're located in the rural areas. And as a result, our employees are paid a higher wage than these people in the meatpacking plants. And so they're more loyal, I think, to the company because they have decent benefits, because they have medical, and because they make a decent wage on what they're doing. But if you can picture the people shoulder to shoulder in these meatpacking plants and know that they're making $12 an hour without any other benefits, working 60 hours a week, well, they have no reason. If they're mildly sick with the flu, big deal. They're in there working. They want that money. They need that money to survive.
Wow.
So
yeah, I think this pandemic is just really shining a light on all the different industries that a lot of people might have very much taken for granted before. So and jobs, obviously, that people
jobs
for granted before. So there's a couple of specific, I think, just can't we change out masks now and then, and then about asymptomatic people might not have an elevated temp, which I think.
So yes, you can change out masks, but we don't have enough masks to do it. You really
that.
need to change them out about every 2 hours or so. So we have enough for people to have 2 masks at this point. And they would probably need more like 10 each, so that they could have ones that are being washed and then bring in other ones next day. We see this as a real problem that we're trying to address as fast as we can. We did not anticipate this one.
Mm-hmm.
And asymptomatic people, they are the most dangerous people in the middle of this, because you're right. They don't have an elevated temperature, but we don't have anything other than being able to go on a temperature gauge. And then each person coming through is asked, where have they been for the last 2 weeks? And where have you been? And every day they're asked, where have you been for the last 2 weeks? And some of these things for people get old. Americans are not good at following these kind of rules and regulations every day. They want to be, you know, set free, like the people up in that corner.
Are you
and
referring to our students?
yes, I was pointing to the students. I don't know where I am in your box, so they're over here in mine. So
The corner. We do probably want to start wrapping up here, but I thought if you could just do a quick, I forgot to ask you at the beginning, just to tell us where you were in the 6-week plan that you originally set down?
Yep. So we're in week 7.
Week 7 of the 6-week plan.
Yeah. So and that's a problem, because when you get beyond what you planned, and we had anticipated that we would have seen the peak and we would have been coming down the other side, and that at the same time we would have had people doing all the things that they needed to do. One thing that we did do was we re-upped the extra money that we were paying people for the next month, so that through the 3rd week of May, they'll continue to get an extra $3 an hour from that standpoint. Anybody that had gone out and been quarantined by us for 2 weeks, they got full pay during that period of time, because we told them to, and it didn't count against their vacation or sick time. Obviously, anybody that actually contracted the disease, and we ended up having 2 people that ended up having gotten it so far. Neither one of them was anywhere near our work when it happened. So we know that they were not a carrier the last day that they were in work, but they are people that we had quarantined as a safety measure. And towards the end of their quarantine, they in fact came down with it after members of their family came down with it, because they were in hazardous jobs. And the most hazardous jobs that we've seen are not in the hospitals. They are in the nursing homes. The people in the nursing homes that are working in the nursing homes are completely unprotected from this situation. They are truly the hidden deaths in the bigger picture. You know, you hear a lot about the people on the front line and in the medical, and certainly they deserve a lot of credit, but they have a lot more protective gear than the people in the nursing homes. And one of the stories was that a woman was falling and her worker caught her, and she happened to test positive. That patient tested positive the next day for COVID-19. And then 3 days later, that worker tested positive. And I know that because her husband was working for us. And we heard the story about her catching the employee, and we sent the guy home. We said, this is inevitable that, you know, being that close, that you're going to be quarantined for 14 days. And he was the guy that 14 days later had not come down with it. And it was on a Friday. And we said, well, why don't you come back in on Monday? And on Saturday, he came down with it.
Wow.
So that was the biggest bullet that we dodged. And he's the one that just came back in. Let's see, today is Thursday. He came back in on Tuesday, back to work. And of course, nobody wants to go near him.
Yeah, he's still got the plague. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we actually have another father in this call that might maybe in the future do a series for us on nursing homes. Natalie's dad actually works in a nursing home, so maybe we can call upon him at some point to lead another series. But yeah, it's incredible, the risks that people are are facing. One last thing I wanted to ask you, because you gave us homework. I think you got
Yes.
a few cheese pictures from the last call.
I did, and I'm still collecting them. So we won't. That one probably won't go out. It won't go out this week, and it might not go out next week. So I'm 2.5 weeks away from sending out that particular message with all of the Cabot. So there's still time for those of you. That's right. For those of you with your Cabot cheese, and take a picture, because one of the things I attempt to do is every week send out a general communication to the employees. And one came back and it was about the farmers. Another one was that I put out was just about what it was like during this thing and how strange it felt and how important they are to the food chain. And another one was about the co-op in general. Another one was a particular farmer who individually spoke about how important all of the employees were to it. So the two that I'm working on right now is the video that would be coming from my comedian friend, and he's actually doing it in his bedroom, which I hope it comes out funnier than some of his day stuff. He's sort of losing his edge because he doesn't have an audience in front of him, so he doesn't hear anybody laughing. So he doesn't know whether his jokes are funny that he's working on, and some of them really aren't that funny. So I've had to write some material for him so that he could do something, and I don't think he liked the material, so I haven't heard from him in a couple of days. And then the next one that I'm trying to do is one of pictures of people with Cabot cheese from all over the country saying thank you for keeping the cheese coming. And in fact, we sell in every state in the country. So I know I won't get them all, but I've gotten quite a few, and I got a lot from this group last week. So the rest of you, let's hop to it. And if you don't have a bar of Cabot cheese, you need to go get one. I'm sure they're still available in the stores.
I think Natalie's grandmother and grandfather are going to get the MVP. They had
they had
like
enough for
40
all of
bricks
us.
of Cabot cheese around them. And
Yes, that was an awesome picture, and a little disappointing from the 5 of you holding one little bar of cheese.
we're breaking out the signature cheese with your signature on it.
Yeah,
So we're waiting to make the grand exit.
I got it.
Your name is going to be blown up, and if
All
you look
right.
at the fine print, it says, "Please don't retire."
Yeah. And I don't know whether all the farmers would agree with you at the moment.
So next week, we're going to talk more about kind of that to open or not to open question a little bit, right?
To open, what was that?
To open or not to open a little bit, the country as far as
Yes. Yeah. And by next week, you're going to see a lot of information on that.
Yeah.
Right? And what I actually hope to do as part of that, because part of what I'm doing already for my company is an analysis of Italy and Spain and Germany, Korea, and Singapore. Those are my test countries who are in different places in this, and what they're trying to do, and potentially what's happened to them. And so I will bait the conversation slightly with Singapore thought that they had this licked 2.5 months ago, and they had absolutely no outbreaks for more than 30 days. And they were being so careful. And they let their students who were around the world come back into the country. And it didn't happen right away because it's a slow growth. But over the course of the last 10 days, they've averaged 1,000 citizens a day contracting the virus.
Wow.
So they thought they had eradicated it, but that's how contagious this is. And so it's understanding the process of opening up your country but also being very cognizant of the fact that this thing is really contagious. And so, and I'll talk more about when the country tries to open it up, how you might go about that. And
Great.
yeah, and you'll have an opinion also. As an American, some people, my dad is 93 years old, right? He's in a nursing home. He's like the prime target of the whole thing. He said, this is thinning the herd, guys. Just let it roll. And then he said, and I know I'm 93, and I know I'll probably get it, but I'm not going to die.
Wow.
So it wasn't exactly my attitude. My attitude was, no way do I want to get this thing. I don't want to play Russian roulette with a disease that for some people, it doesn't bother them at all. And for some people, they come down with a little cough in the morning and they're dead by dinner time. This is one crazy, crazy disease.
Yeah.
And it strikes everybody totally different.
Well, thank you everyone for being
Thank
part
you.
of the call, connecting from all around. Bob, did you?
No,
Oh, I saw someone come out, unmute. Anyway, last week we ended in prayer. I think just a brief prayer, just lifting up everybody's situation and all that people are facing. We can't be praying enough about it, and I feel a great connection just connecting from all over the country, seeing so many faces. So let's just close briefly in prayer, and thank you so much for gathering together tonight. Oh God, there's so much that is out of our control, and there is so much changing in our world constantly right now. We ask that you allow us to have just the gift of seeing what we can control, our little worlds and our little pieces that we can make a difference. Thank you so much for the different jobs and perspectives that are gathered right here on this Zoom call right now, and the different ways that people are making their differences. Thank you for all the different ways that we are connecting, and a new vision is being formed and born into your world. May we trust that we just need to put one foot ahead of each other foot and just keep walking. And may we all do so safely. Thank you so much for Ed and for all the work that he does, and for the work of all the farmers and production people in all of our food system, and bless them as they continue their good work. We pray in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Mm.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi, Pam.
It was a lot of
Thank you,
fun.
Ed.
Good night.
It was good.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye. I'm coming, guys.
Bye, Dad.
Hi, Noah.
You can stay on and linger if you want. I'll keep it open if you want to talk.
Nice.
Good night, everyone.
Natalie.
You want to
Everybody-
talk, Noah?
Bye, Grandma, Grandpa.
Yeah,
Bye,
we'll
Grandma,
talk later.
Papa. Bye, Rebecca.
Congratulations, Noah.
Bye, Pam.
What?
Congratulations
On what?
on getting into AWI.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And if you're thinking about becoming a police officer, you're going to have to get your application rolling on I think it was Southern New Hampshire, right? University. Yeah. So don't lose track.
Nope.
One foot in front of the other, right?
You know, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks,
All right.
everyone.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Night. See ya.